In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about buying the most powerful telescope you can. I'm going to explain to you exactly what to look for, what factors to consider, the main types to go for, and the best models that you might want to choose. Now, some of these are pretty expensive, as you'd expect, but I'm also going to give you some budget alternatives, and I'm also going to tell you about smart telescopes if you don't know what these are. So what is power in a telescope? So if you look at the specifications listed for a telescope, it can get pretty complicated and pretty off-putting. There's really one key specification though that gives us the best indicator of the telescope's power or capacity to provide you with good views, and that is aperture. So the aperture is a measurement of the size of the lens or mirror, depending on telescope type. And it's nearly always indicated in the name of the telescope model, either in millimeters or inches. It's pretty simple. The bigger this is, the better the views you get. This is because how a telescope works. Essentially, here you have a lens or mirror. It's wider, it captures the light and it focuses it down into your eye. And that's how you can see more, because it's capturing more. The wider it is, the more light it captures in the same period of time, and it focuses that down to your eye, and therefore you can see more. So higher aperture, better views. Now, the highest aperture you'll find in a telescope off the shelf that you can just set up to use at home from somewhere like Amazon or from an astronomy retailer like High Point Scientific, Ageno, Astro Shop in Europe will be 14 inches. But even these can be pretty hard to come by. Not always available. I say anything from 10 inches upwards is extremely powerful. Even 8 inches upwards will get you stellar views. Now, there are two main telescope types you can consider for these ultra powerful telescopes. These are Dobsonians and Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes. Dobsonians are what you can see here. They're large standing telescopes. You look into an eyepiece on the side. So the advantages are they're the best value for price, and they're relatively simple to use and well suited to astronomy. The downsides are that they're huge and bulky, so they're really as big as a grown person in your house, so you need to make sure you have the space to store it and use it easily. They're also not particularly well suited to astrophotography, so taking photos. So you can do it, and you can get a smartphone adapter and even just do it with your phone. You might get some good shots of planets or the moon, but you won't be doing a deep sky astrophotography. You'll need something else for that. Essentially, a Dobsonian will suit someone who wants to have long observing sessions in their backyard. They've got the space to roll it in and out of a shed or a garage. They can easily use it, and that's what they're after. It won't suit anyone with any kind of limitations on storage or space. The other option are Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes. It's a type of catadioptric telescope. These can be bought in sizes of 8, 9.25, 11 or 14 inch, although the 14 inches are often rarely available. The advantages of SCTs are that they are more compact than Dobsonians, and so easier to store and to use at home for most people who have some kind of space limitations, although they are still fairly big, especially in the 11 and 14 inch sizes. The second advantage is that they are well suited to advanced astrophotography, so planetary, deep sky. If you think that's something you want to get into, then this might be for you. The major downside is that they are much more expensive than Dobsonians. So, for example, an 11 inch SCT might cost you at least $4,000. A bigger 12 inch Dobsonian you could maybe get for around $1,000. So there's a big differential there. So for Dobsonians, I recommend Skywatcher models. Skywatcher are one of the most trusted astronomy brands, and they have a great range of different Dobsonians, big sizes, and a few different variables. So they come in 8, 10, 12, 14 inch sizes. Other than that, there's a couple of different options for you to consider. Firstly, you can get a classic or collapsible. So classic is a solid metal tube. Collapsible is a design which means you can shrink it down, makes it easier for storing and transport. Collapsible costs a little more, but might be worth it depending on your circumstances. Secondly, you can buy it with or without a go-to mount or a computerized mount. So a go-to mount is a device, part of your telescope. It scans the night sky for you, tells you what you can see. You operate it from a hand controller or from an app on your phone, and you click what you want to see, the Andromeda Galaxy, Mars, and it'll take you to it and it'll track it. So this is really good if you're a beginner, you have no concept of what's where in the night sky and you want it to be done for you. The only downsides of it are it's going to cost more, it's going to weigh more, and it's going to be a bit more work in terms of it being managing cables. It's going to need a power supply. Either you run an AC from somewhere or you're going to need an external power source. So it's a little bit of a barrier to that kind of easy grab and go use that you would get without a go-to. Now, the best budget option then would be an 8-inch classic manual Skywatcher Dobsonian. You can get this relatively cheap if you're talking about 8-inch aperture, non-collapsible, without the go-to mount. So you have to factor in then it's going to be a little bit harder to use. Obviously then if you decide you want a higher aperture option, you want collapsible, and or you want go-to, then the price is going to increase with every step there. The other recommendation I make, which is great for beginners, is one of the Celestron StarSense Explorer Dobsonian range. So these are relatively new. They come in sizes of 8, 10 or 12 inch. The actual telescopes, the OTA as you call it, the tube, is very similar, if not the same, to the Skywatcher ones. What makes it different with the StarSense Explorer range is they come with a smartphone bracket and an app. You attach your smartphone and the app almost works like a budget go-to drive in a sense. So it scans the night sky, it knows where you are, knows the time, so it can tell you what's above you. And you can say, right, well, I want to go to the Andromeda Galaxy. It won't move the thing for you and it won't track the telescope for you and won't track, but you can follow the arrows to go there. So this is a really awesome option. It's a good upgrade for a beginner in particular from just having a manual one, because it'll be much easier to find things to see. Also, it means you don't need that go-to drive, which adds cost, adds weight, and adds that degree of fiddliness of managing cables and power source. So you're taking advantage of the power that you have in your pocket with your smartphone. It makes it a really, really good option. So check the links below if you want to see availability on those. So for Schmidt-Cassegrain, these are all Celestron models. And again, the higher the aperture, the better the views, but the more it's going to cost, basically. So these can go up to 14 inch in size, although that's often limited in availability, but there are usually a good number of different 11-inch SCTs available, so you can pick between what's right for you. The different options are the OTAs from Celestron. There's a kind of a classic, a standard. There's an Edge HD, which is slightly better for astrophotography because it removes what's called chromatic aberration, which is a sort of distortion around the edge of the images. And there are RASers, which are more for advanced wide field deep sky astrophotography. For any kind of beginner looking for a super powerful good home telescope, but the standard is really good, probably what I'd go for. You can always, if you really get into advanced deep sky astrophotography, you might want to explore other options later down the line. The other differential will be the mount that they come with. So these are all going to be go-to computerized. The main options you'll see would be the CPC, which is an alt-azimuth fork mount. This I think is best for beginners. It's much easier to use. It's slightly less optimized for astrophotography because it's an alt-azimuth mount. And if you compare it to the other options that you'll see would be the CGX or the CGXL. These are equatorial mounts, which are slightly better for astrophotography because they allow for a more smooth tracking. But they are harder to use. They require pretty heavy counterweights. It's a bit of an operation getting it all set up. So for most people, if you don't know a lot about telescopes, you want a budget, you want an awesome one, then something like an 11-inch CPC would be perfect for you to have at home. Now, for budget options in terms of SCTs, I have two recommendations. First would be the Celestron NexStar 8SE. The NexStar SE range, possibly the most popular telescopes of all time, perfect for beginners. You get the 8-inch one, you've got big capacity, you've got something which is well trusted, well used, can be set up straight out the box, you'll get great use out of it. The other option might be, if you want a bit more power and a bit of an upgrade, would be the 9.25 NexStar Evolution. It's a higher aperture telescope and it's a better mount. I also just want to cover smart telescopes because they're getting very popular. They've only been around for a few years. And if you are someone who wants the easiest, sexiest telescope you can own and show off, then they might be for you. So very briefly, smart telescopes are devices that have a telescope, camera, mount, tripod, all combined in one device. You manage it from one app. It's all very slick, which is frankly not the case generally for older classic telescopes where you might have to sit through a couple of YouTube tutorials to get you to set it up and get it going. Whereas a good smart telescope, which I'm going to talk about, you'll pull out the box and it's like, it's like an iPhone where you just press a button, then it guides you through exactly what you need to know. You set it up in minutes and you are going, and you can see amazing things really quickly. My recommendation, if you're looking for the best option, would be the Unistellar Odyssey Pro. I have a separate review video on this you can check out. And there's also another video that has a roundup of all the options available. The most powerful would actually be the Celestron Origin, but it doesn't have an eyepiece, which is what I think makes the Unistellar Pro particularly good, especially for someone who's more into the experience and sharing it with others rather than the actual imaging that they perhaps want to get into. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was useful for you if you want to understand power in telescopes and the most powerful options. What I've covered here are ones you can buy off the shelf from major retailers. There are much more powerful options that come from advanced specialized manufacturers. There's an article I've written on this topic and you can see some of them on there. They can go up to 50-inch or 65 inches, big as a truck. So they're not really what you would buy to have to use at home, but it's quite fun to check out and see what they look like and see how much they cost. If you did like this, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm just getting started as a channel. Check out the links below for any of the models mentioned here, any articles related, and how to follow us further, and check out any more of our videos on these topics as well. Thank you so much.